What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are doing some heat management on the S13. All right, so if you guys have been watching, you've been keeping up with the videos, in the last video, you would have seen that I got the downpipe finished for the S13. I made a downpipe going from the back of the turbo all the way to essentially the test pipe of the car. And we did recirculate the dump for the wastegate back into the exhaust. So in today's video, we are going to be doing some heat management, and I have a bunch of this heat shield that I bought, which is stainless steel sheet, and then a ceramic insulation. So this is basically like something you'd be using in an oven to insulate it so it can handle very high temps, and you're giving it a cushion or a barrier really of keeping the heat inside that part. So some of the things I plan on doing, probably the turbo housing, the wastegate body, the turbo manifold itself, and then the entire downpipe that I made. So in the past, I have tried other types of heat management, such as ceramic coating or Cerakote, whatever you want to call it. I've done that on the RX-7. I will show you that here. So, as you can see, this was the turbo setup off of the RX-7 KAT. So I had the manifold coated, the housing coated, I even had the wastegate body coated, as well as the dump tube and the downpipe, and that worked pretty good. I didn't find that the drop in temperature was that significant. Obviously, I didn't really measure it before and after getting it coated, but it was still really hot, and I still had to heat shield areas in the engine bay to protect it from those parts. So what I want to do with this stuff today is I want to see if this will keep things cooler compared to a simple coating or something like that. You see a lot of this type of material being used in like race applications or even on OEM, OEM stuff. You'll see heat shielding like that. And I think, manufacturers use that because it's probably pretty effective in shielding the heat. So yeah, I'm not gonna waste too much time rambling on about this. I'm gonna get all the parts off the car, and then we'll just jump right into wrapping this stuff. It should be pretty interesting. I do have a portable spot welder to kind of weld this stuff together. I've never done it, and I haven't been able to find too much stuff online about this stuff. Most of the time when you do find stuff, it is from like Europe, and the video is usually not in English. So I figured I would try this out, put this out there. Maybe it's something that everyone or most people can try to do in their home garage, because I just got this spot welder thing off Amazon. And yeah, we'll find out if it works. So without any delay, let's get the parts off the car and we'll start wrapping things.
20 minutes later.
So as you can see, this area is looking completely empty now because I have removed the complete downpipe, so the upper and the lower, and pulled off the turbo, pulled off the rear housing for it. We've got our wastegate, and we've got our RTEC turbo manifold. So this is everything that I plan on heat wrapping, and I've taken out the spot welder from the box. So this is just something I got off of Amazon. It's very China looking, and it's got a foot pedal. You take the two prongs, touch it to whatever you want to spot weld, and step on the pedal, basically. It does have adjustable voltage, but yeah. I figure I will start with something easy. So I guess we'll just start with either this top piece of the downpipe or this bottom piece. I don't know if I should start with the top or bottom. Maybe bottom's better because it'll be underneath the car. You won't really see it. But I don't think the heat shield thing is really an aesthetic type of thing anyways. So it probably doesn't really matter. So yeah, I'm gonna clear some of this off the table so I have a decent workspace, and then I'll either start with this one or this one here with the heat shield material right there. So yeah, let's do it.
6 hours later.
All right, so I actually ended up just banging out this first piece of the downpipe off camera.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Just to see how things would go, get an idea, and now I can explain to you guys kind of the process, and I'm sure as I do more pieces, I will figure out a better way to do it. But just to go over some of the stuff that I was using, we have a variety of metal shears to cut, obviously, the stainless sheet. I have safety wire because I was using that to kind of hold the insulation in place. I have seen insulation where the backside of it is adhesive, and that looks a lot easier to use. You can stick it on and it just stays on, and then you can wrap it with the stainless. But when I looked up that product, it was significantly more expensive. It had to come from Germany, and I didn't want to opt for that. I figured I would beat myself up a bit and use safety wire or zip ties or something to just hold it. And the safety wire works because you can use that to hold the insulation on and just kind of leave it underneath there. It's not something that's going to melt over time. So yeah, just the tool for the safety wire, and then I have a ruler, measuring tape. This is definitely key because this will help you measure actually around the piece. So this is like a measuring tape for sewing or whatever you want to call it. And then I just have a Sharpie to mark stuff, a hammer, and I was using this to kind of push down areas because obviously you can't spot weld if there's a gap. If there's a gap, you will immediately burn a hole in the stainless, which sucks because you'll have to patch over that. But yeah, I was using this to kind of just hammer seals down so that they're touching better, and then I can spot weld them. And I was using this as well to just kind of push down, because the way the stainless is, it is all like ripply up and down, right? So you want to kind of get it flat so that it's contacting each other, and then that way you can actually spot weld it. But yeah, I think this one turned out pretty decent. It could definitely look better, but not bad for the first piece. And yeah, basically I will start on the other piece of the downpipe and kind of walk you through it more. And yeah, I was using a vise as well and some soft jaws just to hold the piece. That's probably the hardest part, is figuring out how to hold things while you're trying to tack weld it. I do wish the leads on this were longer, but what can you do? This thing was like 80 bucks off Amazon. So yeah, this piece actually took pretty long. It took like 5 hours to do, which is outrageous. But if you think about it, you are spot welding 2 tiny little points all over these seams. So it takes a while. And obviously you can't wrap the whole thing in one piece. It has to be sectioned so that you can contour and yeah, all that stuff. So let's jump into the next piece and I will explain some of the steps while we're doing it. All right, so here we go. Let's start with this piece, and we are going to start with this little section right here. I'm not gonna do the flex. I think it just would reduce the flexibility of the flex if you were to wrap it. So I am gonna leave the flexes just bare. So we are gonna have heat from that, but everything else is gonna get wrapped. So we are gonna start with this piece here, and we want to figure out our dimensions for the insulation first. The insulation is 5 millimeters thick. So we're gonna take that into account when we figure out the dimensions for the stainless that we're gonna wrap around the insulation. But yeah, so roughly this area here. I'm not gonna go all the way to the edge because I actually want a area of the downpipe to spot weld the stainless steel sheet to the actual downpipe so that it's kind of sealed in there. So all I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna cut about, I would say, 1 inch of insulation, and we're gonna need the length. So that's where this measuring tape, the sewing measuring tape, kind of comes in handy, and we're going to measure the larger area, which is the V-band part. And if you can see here, it's 10 inches. So for the insulation, I am gonna cut it pretty much 10 inches because you don't want the insulation to overlap. You just want it to kind of meet end to end. So I'm gonna cut 1 inch by 10 inches for the insulation, and then we'll check if that fits. All right, so luckily this piece that I have here is exactly 10 inches wide, so we're just gonna cut 1 inch off of it. I'm just putting a mark so that I can see where I'm cutting to. Okay, so we've got our piece cut, and now we can go and wrap it around. And I probably should have done a little bit more than 10. It's a little shy, but luckily the insulation, you can kind of massage it, and it does kind of reach here. So that's pretty good. Now we just got to cut our stainless piece, which is going to be, it's going to be this time, we want to cover this entire distance. So I would say 1 1/4 is probably good in terms of the width. And then we are going to want it to be longer this time because the stainless needs to overlap so that it can actually tack weld to itself. So I'm gonna go over here, and it was 10 inches, right? It was 10 inches, but we're actually gonna cut probably 12. So it has a good amount of overlap and that it can tack weld to itself. Yeah, so I'm gonna cut that piece out of here. We have some scraps here. Okay, so I've got 11 inches here. So the good thing is, like, some of these scraps from the first piece that I made, I don't throw it away because you'll end up, you could use it for patching stuff or whatever, curves and stuff. So it comes in pretty handy. So I have pieces that are 11 inches already in length. I wonder if I can just do that instead. Yeah, this one's pretty much kind of perfect here. All right, so I'm just gonna keep cutting this piece off. All right, so now we have our piece of stainless and our piece of insulation. So this is gonna wrap around here and kind of just butt up against each other. And then we're gonna take our stainless piece, and that is going to wrap all the way around. I'll show you here. Yeah, so you can see here at the seam, obviously I got lazy, and I didn't want to cut a new piece that was 12 inches. This just barely overlaps. This is probably like a 1/4 inch of overlap. I guess I'll turn it so you can actually see it. So right here, it's pretty tight. You should be able to get the insulation tighter as well. So there, that's basically it wrapped together. So we are going to get our spot welding tool here, and we're going to turn it on. I've been using it around 3 to 4, the 3 to 4 setting. I don't know what that is. But that's the amperage I've found to work pretty well. And we are going to put this foot pedal on the ground so I can actually, yeah, so this is the tough part, is having enough hands to hold things and be able to spot weld it. And there you go. It is spot welded together. And from this point, what I'll end up doing is I will use this to kind of push any raised edges down, and then I can spot weld more thoroughly. Because like I said before, if there is a gap, it will immediately burn a hole right through the stainless, which sucks because then you have to patch it. So probably blocking you guys with my hand from this, but you just want to spot weld as much as you can, right? Because you're essentially just spot welding these two tiny little spots. So you want to do that all the way across down the seam. And then what I'm actually going to do is so the reason why we cut the insulation narrower than the stainless is because I want to tack the stainless sheet to the downpipe itself. So the way we're going to do that is I will end up using this guy here to kind of push these parts down. So what you can do to start is actually just go around and tack weld the piece. So this one you'd probably have to turn a little bit higher. So I'm at 4, just now I was at 3.5. So we're actually tack welding the stainless to the downpipe itself. I have to rotate. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that a little bit better. My hand's still not in the way, which it is, okay. But I'm just pushing the edge of the stainless steel sheet down against the downpipe and then hitting the spot weld. Turn it a little higher. Okay, I'm gonna move this back a little bit so I can keep adjusting. I really wish the leads on this were longer, but I guess you can't expect much from a cheap Amazon product. It's doing the job. Okay, so I've kind of got pretty much most of it pushed down, but to finish it off, I am going to use this guy here and just kind of tap in this part. So all I'm doing is flattening the edge so that I can go around and spot weld more spots. All right, so I've kind of gone all the way around the edge. So now I can go ahead and spot weld more spots. So before I was only spot welding essentially the spots of the stainless that were kind of dimpled in and touching, but now I can go and spot weld pretty much whatever spot and just do that all the way around. So this is what is really time consuming about this, is just finding spots that are raised, pushing it down so that we're able to spot weld it. But yeah, that is basically the process. So I'm going to show you guys kind of this up close. So just to give you guys an idea of what I was talking about, try to focus. All right, so as you can see along the edge here, I've used that chisel piece to just push it down flat, and then I can go around and spot weld all along the edge, the stainless to the downpipe itself. So that's attached here. We've got our insulation underneath, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side and spot weld the stainless sheet to the downpipe itself. And that's basically it. So I'm going to put you guys back on the tripod and just try to bang this whole piece out. Any further instruction, I guess I'll try to do it in post as like a voiceover or something. Let's do this.
Years later.
All right, so I have to re-record everything because I'm using a new mic that I have and I didn't have the receiver turned on. So let's do this again. I've got my turbo housing. I didn't film recording, or I didn't film wrapping this just because there's a lot of pieces that I'm wrapping and there's a lot of stuff to record. It's very time consuming and I just wanted to focus on getting this done. We've got 2 more parts to wrap, and yeah, I just wanted to show you that we did the turbo housing. What I did end up doing is I started using cardstock, which was very helpful, to make templates. So I was able to mock up shapes that I thought would contour nicely around. So that did help. I essentially cut out all these pieces before actually doing the stainless cover, and was able to figure out what pieces I need, kind of mock it up like a dry run or a test run before actually cutting it out of the stainless material, because obviously you don't want to waste this stuff if you don't need to. But yeah, that worked out very well. I was able to get all the pieces that I need, so then I could just copy them onto the stainless material, cut it out, and yeah, this probably could have been nicer if I did more thinner or narrower pieces to get it curved more, but I'm not too worried about it. The turbo is top mount and it does have a lot of space, and you don't really see this. What I did care more about is I was able to double up in some areas with the insulation. So I'm hoping that will help keep the temps down even more. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, considering it's my first time doing this. And yeah, now we can move on to the next piece. The turbo manifold. This is Artec top mount V-band SR20 manifold, cast stainless. So this is the next piece that I am going to be wrapping, and we're going to do the same thing. This should be interesting because it definitely has a lot of contour rounded shapes to it, but so did the turbo, so maybe the templates will come in handy. I'm not going to go too much into detail with this, but yeah, you guys can follow along and see how I do it. I just wanted to touch on the spot welder. So the spot welder that I'm using is this 8,000 watt spot welder that I got off Amazon. So this is for, I think this is for welding like batteries or electronics. And you see it has 2 contact tips, and you are essentially spot welding these 2 spots bit by bit. So it is very time consuming to go over every single seam and everything like that. So yeah, this is not something that you can do quickly. It is gonna take forever no matter what. It's taken me almost 6 hours each time to do a piece. And yeah, we've got this and the wastegate left, but I just wanted to touch on the material that I'm using as well. So this came from Europe. It is a stainless steel sheet. Thickness is 0.1 millimeters. And then the insulation is a ceramic insulation that is 5 millimeters thick. So you do have to account for that when you are wrapping stuff. The insulation can squish down a bit, but you should still account that it's going to be 5 mil and kind of keep that in mind. I did keep that in mind when I was building the downpipe to make sure I had clearances on both sides. But yeah, again, if you're looking for this kind of heat shield stuff, this is something that we are starting to carry now as well. So if you need it, you can reach out to us and we can help you out with that as well. They do have different thicknesses. I chose 0.1 millimeters because of the spot welder that I'm using. I didn't want something too thick because you will end up doubling up layers, sometimes even tripling up layers, right? Because if you go over each other, you need to weld to each other. That's 2 layers. And then if you happen to do a patch on it, which is possible because it is very easy to burn through this stuff, yeah, you might have a patch and then you'll have 3 layers. So I didn't want something too thick that would be too hard to tack weld for this tiny little welder. But yeah, something to touch on as well is this stuff is super easy to burn through. So if you try to tack weld it and there's nothing underneath the heat shield, you will burn a hole through it. So if you think that you're contacting the material, but you're not, you'll burn a hole through it. And if you have 2 layers of stainless over each other and you think that they're contacting, but they're not, you'll burn through it. And if you have insulation in between the 2 layers, which might happen too, and you go to spot weld it, you will burn through the stainless sheet. So something to keep in mind if you try to tackle this yourselves, guys. But yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling and we will just get into the manifold. All right, so I didn't record right away, but I got started on the manifold already. Not too much though, I just got 2 pieces here. So basically what I did again was use the cardstock for a template and just went around cutting pieces that would fit. You know, you have to cut areas like this so that it can fit around the inside of the curvature. So yeah, this is going to be a slow process. It's basically like that, and then I had another piece that's kind of like this, which has gotten us to this point. And I did manage to put the insulation on the inside underneath. So yeah, it's pretty much just this. So you guys can follow along, probably time lapses, because this will probably be a long process. But yeah, let's do it. Who knows, maybe the camera battery will die before I even get this runner done. But yeah, let's jump into it. All right, so camera died, but I managed to get the manifold wrapped. Yeah, pretty happy with how it turned out. It's not the greatest in terms of looks. There's some areas that could look a little smoother, but the entire bottom part is wrapped. Everything is pretty much covered. And I did manage to put a little extra insulation in like this area, as well as this area here, just because those are the two spots that are going to be close to things in the engine bay, essentially. I didn't worry too much about the runners themselves. Obviously, they have insulation in it as well, but I didn't put extra because, you know, these are all together anyways, and I'm not worried about too much heat around here. It's not like I have lines going through the runners or anything like that. But this was definitely an interesting piece to wrap. It definitely was the most difficult out of all the parts that I've done so far. But I'm glad I was able to get it done. So now we can move on from the manifold, and the last piece left is the wastegate here. So this should be interesting too, because it is a very round shape, but I'm hoping since it's so small, it won't take long and I'll be able to get this done pretty quickly, because again, this heat wrapping stuff is extremely time consuming. You can tell from this piece here. This is one individual piece, another individual piece, another one. It's just tiny little pieces to get it to curve around. And yeah, hopefully this all pays off. But let's get this wastegate wrapped, and that'll be all the parts that we need to do for our heat management. So let's do it. All right, so let's do this wastegate. I don't know how much I'm going to record because, you know, obviously in this video we have a lot of footage wrapping those parts that we did previously, and I don't want to overdo it. So I used the cardstock again to try to cut out a template that I think will work. This is actually one that I've been using for some of the other pieces that just kind of works for most of it. So this one can wrap around kind of like this, and it'll cover the top there. And then I've got this piece here, which I've cut out and cut slits into. And hopefully this will translate the same way onto the stainless steel, but it will be a little bit different because the stainless is obviously stiffer, not as easy to bend as this cardstock. So it'll be something kind of like this. I'm hoping these slits will let me bend it inwards and on the top and the bottom, and just kind of tack it to the wastegate itself. But yeah, so let's cut some pieces out and just try it. Now, if you've been watching this video and you've been following along this whole time, maybe you were wondering, are you sure that installation is actually going to be okay just sitting right up against the downpipe and the manifold and the turbo? So here's a piece. Show you right here, and I can show you that it does not burn. So like I mentioned earlier, this is stuff that is used in ovens, or it's the same as stuff that's used in ovens, and you can see that this piece, get closer, doesn't burn. So yeah. All right, so here is the finished product. The before is up in the top right corner, and the after is obviously this main picture. But I totally forgot to record everything all finished. So luckily I did have these pictures on my phone. And yeah, you can see the manifold, the lower downpipe, the wastegate, the turbo housing, and the upper downpipe is all finished. And I think it all turned out pretty good. I am excited to get this all back on the car and get the car running to see how dramatic of a difference all this heat management is going to make. All right, so I managed to get all the parts reinstalled on the car. As you can see, everything is back together. We've got our turbo housing, the upper downpipe, the manifold is wrapped, and everything fits pretty good. It's still a little close to this AC line, but I'm not too worried about that. Like I said, I can bend that line out. And yeah, I think this heat shield material, or this form of heat management, is going to do it's going to make a big difference. But yeah, so everything's reinstalled, even the wastegate. I don't know if you can really see down there, but even the wastegate is installed. I'm going to put the car up in the air, and we'll take a look at the lower downpipe and maybe the wastegate from down there. All right, so here it is from the bottom. We can see our downpipe, lower downpipe, fully wrapped, connected to the wastegate, and I think you can kind of see the wastegate right there. So I did manage to wrap the wastegate as well. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the overall result. It is a little close to here, so if I need to, once I get the car running, I can kind of shift this over to the left as well, just by clocking the V-band differently. And that is one of the beauties of using V-bands here and at the turbo, pretty much wherever I can, is that I can easily adjust and it's not all fixed. But yeah, also, if you noticed, right there, those two black things, I actually got the wastegate plumbed up as well. Made some AN lines for the wastegate and plumbed it to the boost solenoid. So hopefully that will be a good solution for wastegate plumbing. But I'm gonna bring this car back down. But yeah, like I said, the wastegate is plumbed up with AN lines that I made. You can see one of them is right here, going to this T-fitting right here, and then going to the boost solenoid right here, and this one goes back to the wastegate. Yeah, basically I did AN for the wastegate because in the past I've always found that wastegate lines, even if they are the silicone ones, they can get kind of brittle if they're really close. That's why I did all this heat management as well. This is something I wanted to try to avoid, or try to prolong the life of things like wastegate lines, vacuum lines, just things in general around this heated area. I probably am still going to make some type of heat shield for the brake master and booster. I'll probably use that heat shield stuff as well. And then it should be good. Hopefully this stuff works out well. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope that you guys, or some of you guys, found this video informative or helpful. But yeah, let me know down in the comments, what do you think of this type of heat shielding? Have you seen it before? Like I mentioned earlier in the video, I've only seen this kind of stuff mostly in Europe being used, and then most recently, a couple years ago, I've seen it in the US, a company that does it. And I actually wanted them to do it originally. But being from Canada, having to ship all your parts to them, and then the cost of it, I think like just to do a 4-cylinder turbo manifold, it was like over $800 USD. So convert that to Canadian, that's a lot of money for essentially just heat management. So I never did it. And then when I got to this point, I figured, you know what, let me try to narrow down the material for this and order it and just try to do it myself. And that's what we ended up with. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope some of you guys found it informative. If you did, click the like button, maybe share it to your friends for them to watch. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting this car running and seeing how big of a difference it makes. Obviously, I can't do a real comparison, but once I get this car running, I will heat probe, you know, these parts and see how hot it gets. And then not a direct comparison, but I could run my wife's S13, heat probe her car as it's running, and just kind of get a rough idea if it makes a big difference or not. But as always, guys, I appreciate you guys watching, subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next video.